Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about why the hell nobody buys AMD GPU. So let's dive deep into it. So we have to understand, before we understand AMD GPU, we have to understand ATI, which was Array Technology Incorporation, basically ATI, this puppy. And now this is an old puppy, it's 1985, and it was a Canadian puppy, and Canadian Semiconductor Technologies, which was rare, and they made a lot of successful GPUs for console. In consoles, they were like the daddy, so to say. So Xbox 360, ATI, Nintendo GameCube, ATI. So they were very successful in that sort of theme. And I had bought basically my first computer that had ATI GPU. My second upgraded GPU, that was also from ATI. Now, even though I am saying they are ATI GPU, technically they are not, simply because AMD bought them in 2006. Now, this company was good in terms of R&D, good in terms of making technology, not really that good in terms of monetizing it. So they were not financially awesome. So they were sold to AMD. AMD bought it, but they did not rename it. Now the rebranding happened in 2010. So meaning, even though I had cards that technically say ATI, basically if I read at it, it's like, yeah, ATI this card or ATI this card. This one has no name. This is very ancient, like 2009 I bought it. So this has HD 5770. So, you know, old card. Even though on drivers and package everything it says ATI, it was always AMD. Like since I got into the system. So over time it was rebranded, so it's flat out AMD. So this is how the origin of AMD GPU division happened. Then we come to AMD. Now AMD is Advanced Micro Devices. It's an American puppy. Now this was made in 1969, nice, and it has around 25,000 employees. Now that's much smaller compared to everything else that you could think of. For example, Intel. How much Intel has? 131,000. That's like some big number. And then you come to NVIDIA, which is GPU only, GPU, or as in like compute card only, that is 26,000 plus. And be mindful, these two, all numbers are plus plus. No company is going to tell you exactly how many employees they have. They generally give you a rough idea. So, you know, it's not very tiny, but also not very big. And Intel made x86. Now x86 was awesome, it worked, everybody was happy with it, but there was an issue. IBM wanted to place big ass order for it, and you have to understand, back then Intel was not the hot stuff. Right now Intel can throw its weight around. Back then people used to throw Intel around. So IBM asked Intel to give second source manufacturer, meaning they will not buy x86 architecture CPUs if there was no second source manufacturer, meaning x86 is a locked ecosystem, exactly like how ARM is. But ARM was designed in such a way that ARM's holding is going to build the core and they're going to sell it to. Meaning they can sell it to whoever wants to buy it. If NVIDIA wants to buy it, go have fun. If Samsung wants to, go have fun, build Exynos. If Snapdragon wants to, go build whatever you want to build. Oh, Qualcomm, basically Qualcomm buy and build Snapdragon out of it, or Apple buy it and A1, A2, whatever have you. So that's an ecosystem which IBM wanted. Now the reason for that is, back in the day Intel was very small. CPU manufacturing was a complicated task, so there was a very serious risk that Intel could go under. So if a big ass company at that time, IBM, like risked something like that, it could have backfire on their face. So they wanted it, and because Intel did not have weight to throw around, they agreed to it. So the second manufacturer that was chosen was AMD. Now be mindful, this is not like first time it has ever happened. This sort of thing always happens, especially in military contract. In military contract, they will always have backups and fail safes, because they cannot risk it. It's like, oh, you are the only company that can maintain our air fleet. There will always be second source for it. And again, we're not supposed to know where exactly that second source is, but there is always. So this is the company AMD. That's why AMD is the only company that can build x86. Nobody else can build it. ARM can be built by anybody who buys it, or you know, when you're talking about RISC-V architecture, that is open source, that everybody can build. So the start of AMD was not amazing. It was always good. It was always like okay. And I bought the worst CPU from AMD. That was FX8350, the bulldozer lineup. It was bad. Like, it was bad. How bad? It was worse than their last one. Like, how the heck I fell for it? This was me being young, and I did not understood 8 core does not actually mean actual true 8 core. It was like 4 cores split into sub cores. Not really good. But again, it did work. It did work for 10 years. So I cannot complain too much about it. And my 5 years of YouTube channel worked on it. So can't complain too much. But in recent time, as in like in late 2020s, as in like early start of 2020s, they become badass. And their cost to performance ratio flat flat out. It's not a competition. It's not like a, maybe this or that. No, flat out became better. Flat out at this point in time, if you go into their CPU stacks, basically what are the cores that you are selling, what are the architectures you are selling, what are the packages that you are selling, in almost all scenario, unless you have very, very, very specific Intel technology, most of the time people are going with AMD. And that's mind-boggling, because back in the day, the reason why Intel is so huge is because they take care of server industry. Like CPU processors that you and I use, that's like chump change for them. That's like, bro, we do it on side, man. That's time pass. The main puppy is the server, and they had almost 100% coverage into that, 100%. But recent time, because deal, if you randomly throw a dart and it lands on a server, there is a very good chance it still has Intel inside. But all the new server that is being commissioned right now, those puppies are going with Epic, and that's a big deal. Like when you talk about, Chat GPT, and then the server name is Epic, that's Epic. So they are really making some gains. And how significant is the gains? Intel, after like a very long time, this is the first time they are suffering loss, meaning they made revenue, but revenue was less than their running cost, meaning they had loss. Like that's a big deal. So this puppy is successful, this puppy is huge, and it's making some gains. And their core architecture, like is Zen 3, Zen 3 Plus, Zen 4, all of those puppies are actually yielding result. So they're really, really good. What about their GPU division, which they bought from ATI? That puppy is also working successfully in console. It's like literally the Control-C, Control-V, the console part. PlayStation 5, console, awesome. Xbox, awesome. Basically Steam Deck, awesome. The new one that is coming, that's also a console chip. Steam Deck is basically running on Mark 1 variant of what AMD wants to build. AMD wants to build APUs. They realized APUs are the future. So this was the Mark 1 product. Mark 2 product that they are releasing on, basically, I keep forgetting the name. ROG Zephyrus? No. ROG Rogue or something. What was the name? It's not launched yet. So the console that they have made from Asus ROG, that has the next generation of CPUs. And those CPUs actually have almost same level of efficiency as Apple M1. And it can do gaming also. So AMD is doing quite well. In CPU, they're really starting to print money. And in terms of APU units, basically the things that go into the consoles, they're like, bro, we got this. They're solid there. So with all those good things, and given the fact that I actually have 2 of my hard-earned money, like this was my father's. Okay, this was also my father's. Okay, the recent one I bought is from my own money. So all these cards, I have bought it. So they must be doing something right. And given the fact they have survived for so long, the fact is, the reason why NVIDIA is pushing technology so vehemently, they can see some spark of genius in AMD. They can see it, like, bro, if we let off the throttle right now, they will take over us. And if this exact same thing happened with Intel. In case of Intel, AMD was like very far behind, like very, very far behind. So that created a scenario where Intel literally was not pushing balls to the walls. And consequently, their technology stack that they developed, they were like, who else are you going to buy it from? Lol. So that literally started to stagnate, and like they had like almost a period of like 4 to 5 years where they was just lolling around. And then randomly Intel, basically AMD, played a gamble with chiplet design. It paid off, and all the research and development they did, all the bug fixing they did, oh, now it's actually good. Holy damn, it's really good. And brick by brick, they became competitive. And NVIDIA does not want that to happen to them. So that's why they are going all, balls to the wall. They are like going all out. And outcome is their performance is good. And the sole reason why that is because AMD is there. And their pricing is not going to stratosphere is simply because AMD is there. They know for a fact everybody has a tolerance. And the tolerance for the cost is directly proportional to your options. Meaning, let's say iPhone comes into the market and iPhone is like $1,000 for a phone. People might be like, if there is no other option, they might have to buy it. But if, let's say, Android comes in, Android is $1,200, at that point in time, they're like, bro, we have to buy $1,000 one. That's the whole thing. That's why you always need duopoly, at least, to keep price somewhat in check. And recent entry of Intel, which has giant workforce and like some seriously deep pocket, as in like even with a year of loss, they are like, bro, we got this. Bro, we have enough chump change that we can like handle few years of it. They jumped into GPU market. Be mindful, Intel, while really awesome in CPU department, they do not have compute card market. Same way NVIDIA has compute card market. NVIDIA got like compute card market like right by the balls. And Intel also likes that money. They want a world where they're like, what is this supercomputer made out of? Intel. Like, what's the CPU? Intel. What's the GPU? Intel. They want that. They can't have it right now. So they jumped into the GPU market. And all they did is proved that AMD was good. Now you have to understand, AMD till this point was always called as last graphics card, because again, if you have only two players in the game, the first one is the winner, second one is the last. So they were always the last, the loser. But the fact that Intel tried to jump in, and given the fact that Intel had experience with GPU, integrated GPU on their processors for decades, they still lost that thoroughly, that badly. That proved the world that GPUs are not that easy. So that also boosted AMD's credibility. It's like, no, bro, we know what we are doing. NVIDIA is just that good. And they truly support open source. Now, this is just out of goodness of their heart, and also some brownie points. And trust me when I say this, brownie points matter. So they are really supporting open source community, meaning Linus Torvalds, basically the granddaddy of Linux, does not go F NVIDIA. They will not do AMD simply because AMD is the only graphics manufacturers that can work with x86 natively without any issue, and they truly give you, here's our driver code, that's how you. People have developed their own driver packs. People have wrote the whole coding for basically Linux, and that's why Steam Deck is running Linux. It's super easy for them to port. The biggest issue they have is like porting Windows game to basically Linux operating system, not the hardware stack. Hardware stack is like, bro, we got this. So supporting true open source, that's awesome. Linux community, awesome. And they do have future parity, meaning back in the day, basically during the era of this, NVIDIA also acquired a small company. That small company gave them a technology known as PhysX. So PhysX was not a big deal, but again, that was the only time where I can say flat out, no matter how long you waited, if PhysX ever would have caught on, and you had to buy NVIDIA. That was never the case. PhysX has never caught on, so to say, as in like there were some games. I have one game, I think, Batman, that has that PhysX actually. But hilarious part is like modern games, modern NVIDIA card cannot run it because they do not have that PhysX processor there anymore. So there was never a time where you're like, okay, if I bought AMD, I cannot play the game. That never happened. Like, there's always a delay, like RT course. There was a delay, but it came in. And so there will be a delay, but there won't be an absent. And AV1, I'm genuinely shocked that they released it literally parallel to NVIDIA. So that's awesome. And you have to understand the score aspect. Many times RT, ray tracing, people don't think it's important. It is important. How do I know? I'm a game artist. Like, I actually worked in some games like Forza 4 and Halo and Playdate, why I'm saying Payday 2 DLC and all other games. So I used to work as a 3D game artist. So trust me when I say this, every technology that you see today in in the 3D community will take 4 to 5 years to come into gaming community. It takes time. Like, it's fundamentally, it's a very big complicated process. So game engine building itself takes 4 years. So if you built a game engine, like I was working in a time where PBR, physics based rendering, was a thing, but we would never see this in the games that were popular at that time, simply because it takes time. So ray tracing is the next generation thing. Now, ray tracing is not NVIDIA's proprietary. The hardware is proprietary. The way NVIDIA implements it, that's proprietary. But the algorithm, the idea is like, take the light and compute it. That's normal. That's done in console. Be mindful, consoles are made by AMD. Still done. There are ray tracing games on consoles. It's just not called ray tracing. That name is different. So ray tracing is here, and it's here to stay because it's not NVIDIA's. NVIDIA's was the first that jumped into it. It's like, okay, this is the next big thing. We're going to change our branding to it. And yes, it will become something important in next 3 to 4 years. Right now, people are porting some old games. People are learning. But I can guarantee you, and given the fact I have contacts in the industry, they are working on it right now. And you can see that in small game studios, like how small game studios are jumping very quickly to Unreal 5. Like my personal favorite, Coffee Stain Studios, Satisfactory. So they always has feature parity. So given the fact that this puppy has ray tracing, not as amazing, it's almost one generation behind, but it has it, you will not be like, oh, I bought this, so I can't do this. That won't happen. So that's really, really good. So these are the good things. Price control, good. Given the fact that Intel had such a hard time doing so, proves that what AMD is doing is really, really hard, and NVIDIA is genuinely good. And the fact that they truly support open source community, that's also awesome for many, many, many people. And the fact that they have feature parity, meaning you won't be left out. That's awesome. So what about the bad? Like, why exactly nobody buys it? Well, reality is like they have never had, like, again, back in the day, during the era of this, like, what is the era? 5700, I think during 3000, they actually were that ahead. But they have, in recent memory, never had wholesale beating, meaning they never beat AMD, how AMD beat Intel. Like, AMD beat Intel hard by AMD 5000. When AMD 5000 series was launched, there was nothing that Intel had. It's like, please buy this. They had nothing. It's like, you want productivity, you go AMD. You want gaming, you go AMD. There was nothing, like flat out nothing that Intel had to offer. Now that's what we call wholesale bit slapping. But AMD in recent time, they never have done it. Like flat out, no, just no. So that creates a very serious scenario. It's like, I'm paying for it, and like GPUs are kind of luxury items, and given the fact that if you're paying that much, paying a little bit more to get truly the first class, it's almost makes logical sense. So that's there. And from their hardware point of view, now this is my personal experience, and given the fact that I have multiple years of data point, there after launch, it's almost incomplete. The things that come out of AMD, it's incomplete, flat out untested, and it takes almost 1 year of full force development before they are like, oh, the GPU actually had this kind of performance. And people say, oh, it's driver optimization and all that. It's not optimizing. It's just using the horsepower you had. It's like your gearbox was not working. So reality is, it takes them 1 year to make basically the software stack work properly with the hardware stack. And that's like frustrating. Like, you bought it, it's not working right now. So you can always see AMD GPUs review. They will be like at launch review and 1 year later review. 1 year later would be far more, flattering, so to say. Why? Because again, oh, finally the driver team caught up. If you are updating a driver and randomly all games are getting 30 FPS boost, that fundamentally means you are never using the GPU to full power because the hardware did not change. So that's one of those things that's frustrating. It's like, you never hear this sort of story in NVIDIA. Of course, there could be some glitch, like, oh, this glitch was there. And in case of NVIDIA, they genuinely suffer a lot from 1% dips. So they work their ass off. That's why they have game-specific drivers, where it's like, okay, this new game came out. Some people will work on their ass off to make sure that that game never has that dip. They always focus on that dip. So that dip will be very low, and then they will patch that system out. AMD genuinely is inferior in that, like genuinely, like not even a discussion, genuinely is inferior. And AMD Radeon 7000 was incomplete at launch. It had power bug. Like I was, when I built my system, I was solely focused on energy efficiency. It's like I wanted to run on as low power as possible, simply because I have very dirty power here. So as in like low, like I'm running on UPS, that UPS is running on an inverter. And I have to make sure that I'm consuming as little power as possible, because again, if power cut happens, which does happen here daily, and it does happen for like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours per day, so I have to be damn sure that I can run on battery power. So energy efficiency was key here. They had steady state power bug. As in like that power bug is frustrating to me, because it's the easiest thing to check. Like you can have leads going to your GPU and you can just read out the power. Like you can just read. That should not be, oh, if you have multi-monitor setup, it has a glitch. It's like, how the heck they did not test it? Like, and I have triple monitor setup. Like this is my main, basically presentation monitor. And then I have 2 main working monitors. How the heck that happened? Again, that was flat out output of, you have smaller team and you are not doing quality control. And they price like NVIDIA. This was the personally frustrating part. That's why, AMD sucks in terms of market share. It's like NVIDIA is like, I'm going to push to $1,500. AMD is like, dude, I also want $1,500. But you know what? You burn in the flame, I'll go to $1,400. It's like, what the hell? What the hell? It's like, you want that kind of profit while you do not have that kind of horsepower. It's like, dude, just stay in 1000. How about that? How about you stay at 500 or 600? It's like, no, I'm gonna, like, NVIDIA goes ahead, they're like, also I'm coming back. It's like, bro, you are one generation behind. And if you show that sort of price, people are like, dude, if I'm paying almost that much, like almost 90% of the cost of a NVIDIA card, might as well pay 10% more. And that's why it always going back to the chicken and egg scenario, always going dog chasing its own tail. It's like, dude, you have to give price, competitiveness is not good for you. You cannot be price parity. It's like, bro, because you do not have feature parity, performance parity at the day of launch. And it takes 1 year, and everybody who gets pissed off by AMD's poor driver performance, they're like, dude, I'm never touching AMD. And I have linked videos down below. And many people have been burnt with AMD drivers. They're like, dude, imagine it this way. Let's say you bought this and multiple games you try, it's just like, nope. You're never gonna buy it, no matter how much reviewers gonna say. And again, it was on AMD because they pissed you off. You're never gonna do it. So this is a very, very serious issue. And here's the deal: after launch, the price drops dramatically, and as in like in less than a year, the price drops to 30%. Sometimes as low as 40% has dropped, because again, nobody is buying it. And they launch way too many cards. That's another frustrating part. It's like they have very small team. Like again, that's why I specified NVIDIA has much larger team, like 1,000, 2,000 more people, and all your focus is on making compute cards. They are far more efficient. AMD is split into 3 core components: CPU core architecture, server department, and GPU department. GPU department is tiny. They are bringing tiny revenues. So they cannot have like 50% of the workforce. Fundamentally, that's a tiny team. And you are overworking those tiny team. And that's why it always takes 1 year after launch to be like, oh, this card actually had horsepower. Like this is an example of if you directly see comparative launch of it. This is non-ray tracing. Ray tracing is important. It will become important. Not right now, but it will. But what about non-ray tracing? If you have 7900 XTX, who came up with this name? RTX 7900 XT, you can see that basically at best case scenario, if you have 79 XTX, that's 8 to 9% better than 4080, not 4090. Now this puppy is the highest that AMD can go, while the highest NVIDIA can go, it will be ahead by like 17%. That's a lot. 17% ahead. That's why I said these things are luxury items. So why would you you know what, I'm gonna settle for minus 17%. You're almost at that price point, almost there. It's like if you're already spending $1,200 or $1,000, it's like what is a few $100 more, because be mindful, luxury item, it has a different calculation. It's not food, water, coffee or something like that. And not to mention, if you compare like 7900 XT, that's like 30% less. And like even compared to 4080, that's 7.2% less. And they flat out never had that clean bit slap where they're like, no, our card will flat out destroy NVIDIA. That's not there. And not to mention their card self-destructed because somebody forgot to do quality control. It's like how much liquid is there in the vapor chamber. How the heck that happened? That these are hardware level things. These are something that a thermometer should be able to tell you. How the heck these sort of things made into customer's hand? There are some deep issues like how AMD's CPU server department is suffering right now, where it's like, dude, our CPU is going boom because there was a glitch in this system. RAM overclocking, that if you overclock it, like as in like SMP automated profiles, it could send voltage. Like that's a rare thing. This is like a physical thing, man. Physical thing. Power bug, physical thing. This vapor chamber issue, physical thing. And again, imagine what happens to that person that deals with it. Even if AMD does what you call RMA, that person is never gonna buy AMD again. So what can we expect in the future? Well, we have to figure out this core part. The part is that if you look at Newegg, so to say, and you look at the pricing always goes down. Like it rarely stays at the same MSRP, and unless you have like pandemic or like chip shortage, the price drops down dramatically. Meaning the card that was selling for like let's say $900 or $800, they will slowly drop to $690, and with some coupons and with this add-on and that on, the practical price will go down even less. So they have to have very low prices at launch. They cannot, because again, if at launch price is $900, people will judge you for $900, and they will look at NVIDIA, and NVIDIA will like, I'm charging you $1,000 for the best. The people are like, might as well give that $100 extra. So they have to lower the launch prices. It does not matter that market forces them to reduce it. No, the price has to be low. So this is what we call cost attractive, not cost competitive. Meaning right now they are cost competitive, whereas like NVIDIA has given you this much, we are giving you almost that much, but for a little bit less price. So it's more or less the same. That's competitive. You cannot compete flat out in this sort of ecosystem. You have to become attractive, meaning it's like, bro, why are you buying NVIDIA? It cannot be like, I was almost spending that much, so might as well go more. No. It has to be like attractive, so to say. And this is an example, like what happens when the product manager smokes too much weed is like they have too many product SKUs, meaning how many lineups there are. And be mindful, each lineups have to go to multiple board partners. These are just the silicon core, the GPU part of the GPU, basically the die that is under here. So how many dies do you think AMD has? And how many do you know? So let's start. 6950 XT. I have no idea why they have XT there, but okay. 6900. 6800 XT. 6800. No XT. 6750 XT. 6700 XT. 6700. 6650 XT. 6600 XT. 6600 no XT. 6500 XT. 6400. These are physical cores. These require physical packing. These require physical drivers. As in like driver, as in like you have to code specifically for that, because VRAM also goes there. Like you have VRAM category 16 gigabyte, 12 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte. One card is only 10 gigabyte. 8 gigabyte category, one card is 4 gigabyte. Now managing all of this flat out impossible. Like there are two cards that are like literally looks like they did die binning, and they're like, instead of like forcing, okay, you may get like, you know, good card or you may get really good card, so they're like, no, what if we have really good card as a different card sector? I'm like, you do not have enough people to do that. It's like literally, yeah. Compute unit 3232, rate accelerators 3232, game frequency 2359 versus 2410. Infinity cache 3232, max memory size as in like the VRAM 8 gigabyte, memory class GDDR6. Why do you have these two? Like literally, why? You should not have these. These should be literally be basically one die and be like, overclock it. Overclock it. If you have good silicon, it overclocks. If you don't, you don't. It's like you don't have to create two segments for it. And again, this segments becomes a hassle for seller. Seller is like, what the hell I'm going to do with non-XT then? Like I have to make it cheaper. Now it's a hassle for them. Again, whenever a company makes too many products, it hurts their own ability to polish this. It hurts their own bottom line. If you throw all this away from 12 and you drop it down to, let's say, 5. So you have very cheap to mid-range to high-end to God tier. You cover everything and you will have much easier time for packaging, to inventory management, to actually selling these things. Because again, customer can like, they can run their own system, or you can send them the graph, hey, we made this score, we ran the system, these cores are like, you know, bit higher, I think you can package it into your overclock variant, this into basic variant. You can go YOLO. For example, you go to Asus website, you buy 4070 Ti, there are multiple variants of 4070 Ti itself, even the core is the same, and you can do the same. Like you have tough variant, that is like basic variant, and then you have overclocking variant that is super expensive. Right? You can do that, but again, board partner will deal with this, not the AMD engineering department. They're like, bro, if your drivers work efficiently well for like, let's say 2359, it will work quite well for 2410, and board driver will optimize it. You will simplify the product stack. And again, it will also reduce confusion in terms of audiences. Like, can you imagine if you bought like, let's say 6600 XT and somebody said, hey bro, why you bought 6600 XT? 6650 in discount is cheaper than that. You will be like blood boiling here. And be mindful, these are tight budget sector. You cannot have like price cap. So this is one thing they have to do. This is the easiest way to reduce cost. Throw away this stack, reduce the stack to 4 or 5 cards. The end. And then focus on creators. Right now, this is the department where NVIDIA really played a good long game, meaning they had market coverage. So they were like, okay, we have market coverage. Let's develop some tools for tool makers. They developed CUDA. And because they were selling so much, other companies, basically, let's say Max, Maya, Blender, these people looked into it. It's like, hey, people have NVIDIA card. NVIDIA has this CUDA. NVIDIA is helping us developing the CUDA tools. How about we develop it? Now that created a feedback loop where it's like NVIDIA sold more, CUDA got supported, and then PS tool makers used CUDA, and then they're like, okay, now we can directly support it. Voila! Now more people buying NVIDIA card because it supports CUDA, and because again the software supported, that creates a more ecosystem, and bam, 100% market coverage almost. So this created a very serious issue for AMD. They cannot just break into it. You may be like, oh, almost this much performance, almost this. Nah. If the tool makers are using NVIDIA, like for example, the game studio that I worked in, like majority of the cards were NVIDIA, not majority, all. Like maybe they will have one or two something else, but majority will either CUDA or NVIDIA. I know both are the same, but like two categories, so to say. So that's the idea. They have to focus on that front. They have to take care of productive people, and they have to take care of creators. They have to also have the same ecosystem where they're like creative drivers, which are like less finicky, but far more robust, bit less performance, but has to be robust. Like robustness is the first thing. Then you have gaming driver, most feature rich as possible. So they have to take care of that. Otherwise, they will never have market share. That's a very important thing they have to do. And they should also focus on load power draw cards like RTX 4000 small form factor. Now, this is a normal card. It has power requirement. Like again, you can have like 2 plug, 3 plug, 4 plug, 12 volt high power rail plug, whatever have you. But there is also card ecosystem like this, which we call small form factor. Now this is half height, as they call it. And this card that you are seeing, like RTX 4000 series, this puppy, PNP company is the one that's making it, is generally sold in bundles. Like not as in bundle, as in like thousands of units are sold in one time. They are selling it to, not to you or me, they are selling it to basically Dell, they are selling it to HP, they are selling it to Lenovo. That's how all offices end up getting CUDAs. And this is the part they have to hit. And again, this puppy has 20 GB of VRAM. Now you're like, why the heck they have 20 GB VRAM when they are running as low power as 75 watt? The PCI lane itself provides power, 75 watts of power. So generally you will design something that runs at around 70 watts of power. And this is kind of amazing. Expensive as hell, but 75 watt. That's a very big deal. That means your power supply has to be far cheaper, and also your air conditioner, because again, the heat directly translates to heat. Your air conditioner has to pull out. So if your air conditioner does not pull out, savings. So companies are like, shut up and take my money. And not to mention, this also goes into 2U server racks without any issue. So these are a very important form factor, and AMD genuinely do not work their ass off to take care of this. There are some cards, and I do say because of Apple's support, there is a workstation division of AMD also, but not very popular. Tell me what its name is. I've used it also. So it's one of those things. They have to come to something like this. They have to make it cheap. They cannot have this many cards. It's like, bro, no. It's like, everything I have to do count. It's like, think of it this way. The hertz difference, like what is the megahertz difference, is literally 100 from 6950 XT to 6900 XT. It's like 50 hertz. Everything is same. It's like, dude, why do you have XT? It's like, this name could have been so simpler if it was like simple numbers. And again, it would be simple if there was just 5 of it. This cannot go on. They cannot afford it. They do not have the team size. They do not have the market, and their launch prices have to be much lower. They cannot be cost competitive. They have to be attractive, and they have to focus on the office makers. If they focus there, only then they will break the cycle where it's like everybody uses CUDA, so CUDA gets supported, so more people buy CUDA, and you can do Hulululu all day long. But even if LTT uses basically AMD card, and then they're gonna yeet it slowly. At the moment the 5th generation comes out, I think like RTX 5000 comes out. So this is the future. This is the only option they have. So this was my presentation on why the heck nobody actually buys AMD card, even though I'm the one who bought 2 of them. So this was my presentation. Hopefully you guys have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.